What if the landscape itself could lead your eye exactly where you want it to go? Not with signs or markers, but with shape, flow and rhythm. In photography, we call it a leading line, nature's way of guiding our gaze, and few places do it better than here. Today I've come to the quiet edge of Scotland to chase one of the most powerful natural compositions I've ever seen. Well, hello, and hope you're all doing well, and welcome back to another video, and welcome back to just over the border into Scotland here. And as you can see, we're working with this little estuary just off to my right here, absolutely beautiful, which is leading out into the Solway. You've got a little village over my shoulder here, which is Palnackie, and then away over into the Solway out towards Rockcliffe and out that direction. Absolutely stunning today. It was a little bit cloudy first thing when we first got here, but as you can see, the sun's come out, so now it's a little bit bright, so we can't really win with what's going on with the weather. So it's going to be a little bit of a case of waiting around to see what happens here. I'm also kind of giving a little bit of time to, because this is a tidal estuary, I'm waiting for the tide to come up into the river just to kind of pronounce those curves a little bit more. And it is starting to happen. The water is starting to rise slowly. High tide's about another 3 hours away though, about 4 o'clock. But I don't think we'll need the full high tide to make use of this estuary. Just a little bit more water in there just to kind of define the edges and allow you to kind of use it as a nice leading line which leads you out into the estuary and out into the Solway there. So that's the plan. So what I'm going to do is going to show you that shot on the back of the camera now and kind of walk you through how I'm going to use that as a nice leading line. Right, what you should be able to see, I've kind of underexposed for the clouds. If I just raise that up a touch, you'll see it a little bit better, is I've got this 4:3 aspect ratio set up, and I think that's going to work best for me. And the reason for it is I'm trying to use that lovely curve of that estuary as a lovely leading line in the bottom of the frame. Now you'll see what I really wanted to happen is it to come out the bottom left corner of the frame. But if I move it down too far, it's not working because I'm starting to cut off either the little town, which I think is a nice kind of focal point of the image off to the right hand side there. There's a little white cottage down in the lower section. If I just move my focus point down to just around there, there's a lovely little white cottage. So I'm losing that if I kind of come down any further because it just sort of disappears out the edges of the frame. What I think's happening here though is I'm trying to balance the sky and the landscape so that it's almost half and half. There is quite a lot of sky in the frame, so what I want to do is kind of balance that as much as possible. So what I'm actually doing is, if you're looking at this in thirds, which I've got the grid set out here, I've got the estuary and the curve of the estuary leading kind of halfway in from the lower third, and then you follow that river through, right the way through the frame, almost into the centre of the frame. So where the estuary comes out, and that's little village of Rockcliffe just off to the left-hand side there, which is just over here, that's kind of where the edge of the estuary is, and then you lead into the Solway and beyond, and out there is obviously Workington, Whitehaven, way over at the other side. But I just think it helps to kind of tell the whole story, this image following this curve of the estuary. You can follow it all the way through the scene, right out into the middle there, and then there's going to be this lovely sky above. Now it has clouded back in a lot since earlier on. It was really quite blue, and I actually like the detail in the clouds a lot more. So if I darken this frame down, you'll see that detail come through. So I think that'll work really quite nicely. We've also got, if I raise the exposure, you'll see how much nicer the light is on the landscape. So I'll be able to darken that sky and then leave that light on the landscape to give you a nice sort of image in total. So yeah, that's basically it. Just using that as a nice leading line coming right the way through the image there and just waiting for the best conditions. But as you can see, that water level is starting to rise now, and it's making the edges of that estuary just stand out a little better than it was before. So a little bit higher, and I think it'll be absolutely spot on. Anyway, I'm going to wait around for that to happen, but when I do, hopefully I'll get this shot all put together, and here it is now. Now that we've got that shot, what I want to try and do is incorporate some of these rocks down here into the frame. And they might just make a really nice foreground, but I'm not sure whether it'll work with everything else that's going on in the scene or whether it'll be too busy. So it's going to be a case of experimenting with it and seeing if it actually works. So I've switched lenses here and I've gone wide angle, and I'm taking a vertical shot this time, and that's because I want to incorporate some of these rocks I was talking about before. Now I've tried it in landscape as well. I'm not quite sure it works as well as it does in vertical though. I think it seems to work a lot nicer this way. I can balance the rock out with the sky a lot better, so that it's more of a balanced frame. So I've basically got that curve running through the middle of the frame this time, with it being vertical instead of the lower section. I've got the rocks in the lower section of the frame here, and then above that, obviously above that top third, is all sky. So that's the idea anyway. And now that that water's in there, it's really nice and defined. So I think this works really well just as a secondary shot. I kind of think I prefer the first one without the rocks in, but this just adds a little bit of an extra element. Sometimes it's difficult to know whether it's actually adding too much to a frame though. It's really nice to have a foreground interest to an image, but sometimes it can overcomplicate it for me, especially with a scene like this. But I won't really know until I get it back on the bigger screen and I can kind of put both together and see them side by side and see which one I prefer. So now that we have those couple of shots done, I think I'm going to look around this area and see what I can find on the ground. A few little vignettes of some flowers and the odd butterfly, which there seems to be loads of them around here. Must be this open space we have. And then just beyond here I've got some nice woodland as well, and there is another path that went further up onto the top that might be worth exploring. And once we've done that, I think we're going to move further down onto the coast, down in this direction towards Rockcliffe, and see if there's anything worth photographing down there. It looks as though it has potential down there. There's quite a few boats in the harbour and everything, so yeah, might be something to work with down there, but we'll see what we find here first. Leading lines aren't just about directing the viewer's eye, they're about creating a journey through the frame. They invite movement, depth and intention to your images. And the best part, they're everywhere, waiting to be noticed. In rivers, roads, fences, shadows, even the subtle curve of a shoreline. So the next time you're out with your camera, ask yourself, where is the landscape trying to lead you?